I'm the director of T-HAP Limited. Yes, we are going to record it also because for those who wanted to join us and are not able, we will have this recording on our YouTube channel. So welcome from our side, from T-HAP Limited side. I'm Alessandro Carbone, the director, and I'm very happy to start with you today this first out of 5, and we will have more during the year, workshops, which we have called the infusion workshops, a series of meetings where we would like really in a very much interactive way to discuss about things. Let me give you just 2 notes about T-HAP. We are a company existing now for 10 years. I would summarize that we are a consulting and training company, focusing very much on wellness, in optimizing wellness and well-being, especially for individuals, professionals, and groups and local communities. Our company offers training activities, consulting services, mainly for small and medium enterprises. We work very much on EU project design and implementation for ourselves, but also for other companies. We do counseling and psychotherapies on-site and online. And then we also do some research on a local level and community intervention. And finally, we have developed quite recently our talent lab, which is hands-on experiential training and education on EU project management. That's for T-HAP. As of our infusion workshops, we have characterized them as an engage, immerse, and innovate education. The topics of our meetings, of our encounters, will deal with innovation in education, but especially well-being in education in its different shape or forms. Today we have our first meeting with 3 rapporteurs, but we really would like meetings to be quite interactive, interchangeable. So we really look forward also to your intervention, either verbally, we will have time towards the third part of our hour, or by writing in the chat. So feel also free writing in the chat while the paper deliverers will do their intervention. Before entering in our today's meeting, let me just give you a couple of technical things about the recording. Yes, we have already started the recording. The videos will be available on our social media channels as of tonight. Questions, either live at due time, or you can start writing in the chat. So we will collect them and hand them over to our 3 rapporteurs. If you can keep your microphone switched off so that we don't have background noises, but if you like to open your cam, we are very much pleased about that, because viewing faces gives us some well-being in the interaction and in the relation and in the communication. After our meeting today, you will also receive a small link with an evaluation, because we would like really to learn from this experience. Today is our first of this year, 2023. So your feedback is very, very important for us. Having said that, I would get straight into the topic. Today, we are going to talk about sport for people and planet, an approach for sustainable development through physical activities in Europe. And we have 3 very important rapporteurs today to help us. I quote them and I will introduce them slowly. Professor Wouter Kool's of the university in University in Brussels. We have Karin Duque, and then we have Professor Lawyer Dr. Urs Kluser, who will express some hints, and then we might eventually react all together. I would leave the floor now to Professor Wouter Kool's. Among the many things we could say about the people presenting today, I would like only to point out 2 things, but you have their CV also on our website. Professor Wouter Kohls is an assistant professor at the Multidisciplinary Institute for Teacher Training at the Vrije University in Brussels. And the researches he usually works and performs on focus on physical education, sports, and movement sciences. So I guess he is absolutely entitled to offer his hints today for us to reflect and for us to react. Professor Kohls, yours the floor.
Thank you very much, Alessandro, and welcome to you all, the audience. Is the background noise okay, or should I take a microphone? Okay. Hello, everyone. As Alessandro already told you, I am Professor Kohls from the University of Brussels. I will start presenting. I won't be seeing you, and I won't be seeing the chat. So if there is something, just interrupt me for a minute.
Okay.
What I've tried to do for this presentation is to see how sustainable developmental goals relate to physical activity and what kind of recent literature is has been appeared the past 5 years, so that we can focus on the challenges that are considered quite current and quite close to what we have to do or what we can do at the, on the well-being and physical activity level of people. So on the agenda is of course the question: is there such a thing as physical activity, sustainable physical activity? What kind of relationship is there with the sustainable goals? And what kind of interventions and actions are suggested by some of the authors of these scientific articles? I was also wanted to trigger you about the concept of physical literacy, but I think that we won't be having too much time to go into the depth into that. The stakeholders will be integrated in the whole talk. So if we are talking about sustainable physical activity, I would like to invite you all to participate in a small poll, and you can see the in the chat. You can see the link. You can also use the QR code to participate, or the code below the picture or the QR code. If you go to WooClap and you answer that, and I would like you to reflect on the fact what kind of physical activities, according to you, can contribute to attain some of the SDGs that are mentioned below or in the picture. Please also mention them in your contribution, and we will see how things are already on your mind relating to that.
No se siente gente.
I see a lot of things appearing: running, swimming in the sea, swimming, walking, especially in nature, cycling. You might also try to mention, as in the example I gave, active transportation, for example, is related to SDG 3. So there's still 7 seconds left to contribute. Actually, pointed to. Let's see how I can elaborate a little bit on the physical activities and the relation with the sustainable development and the sustainable development goals. I chose to focus on 3 journal articles exploring this relationship and reviewing a number of studies in their systematic review. And I will try to focus on worldwide challenges. So one of the biggest challenge we have is entailing or goals that we have set up in with 150 countries in Paris in 2015 is that we try to be carbon neutral by the end of the century. That means that we want to reduce climate gas emissions and we want globally to increase physical activity. These 2 elements actually relate sustainability and physical activity. So a number of conclusions of the articles that I mentioned are that the relationship is bidirectional between physical activity and climate change. So there is some impact from physical activity on climate change. And there is also some climate change that has an impact on the level of physical activity of people. I will go into the depth in a minute on that. So the relationship has also shown to be very highly complex between the physical environment, physical activity and sustainability. And the increasing amount of increasing physical activity is paramount of importance for achieving objectives in relation to sustainability. And some physical activity habits may hold more sustainable properties than others. So these main findings have to be elaborated or have to be explained a little bit. In the first study, you can see in the picture that there is a bidirectional relationship between physical activity and air pollution, greenhouse gases, precipitation, temperature, and also natural disasters. So from this study, there are 5 important recommendations for stakeholders that have been mentioned. So future physical activity guidelines should include risks and benefits for physical activity related to climate change. For example, heat waves, because heat waves hold certain risks to perform physical activities. So physical activity rate guidelines should also include recommendations about the risks of heat waves, because we've noticed that many people don't change their physical activity behavior if they are really physically active onto heat waves. We've seen reductions of physical activity, of course, when temperatures go above a certain level, but some people don't take into account that also heat waves can be dangerous for physical activity. If we want to go to reduction of air pollution and greenhouse gases, then our behavior should also, our physical activity behavior should also include some reflection on how we participate in physical activities, and some of the physical activities that we do they contribute to our health in general? On the one hand, maybe yes, because of our participation in physical activity. But on the other hand, if we are using too much transport like cars and airplanes to do our physical activities, it may be something that takes away the benefit of what we are doing. So that is a recommendation that we have to take into bear in mind, and that we have to see whether we can actually make people more aware of their behavior. So climate change has also an impact, and an adaptation role should be included in the sport science courses. So the role of education and the training of future physical educators and sports scientists should also take into account the climate change and the impact of climate change. Physical activity and sport communities should also be involved in regional preparedness for plans for natural disasters. As you can see in the picture, a lot of natural disasters have immediate impact on the reduction of physical activity. There is also a resilience if there is a community that is very active and investing in sports. We see that the rebuild after a natural disaster can support physical activity and health in people. So a total revision of transport modes related to leisure sport and practices and professional sports needs to be developed. As I mentioned already before, are we still about to promote Olympic Games that are divided all over the world, and that changes from every 4 years from place, where things are rebuilt, built new, where a lot of energy expenditure is used and a lot of resources are used to build new things and new infrastructures, and old Olympic infrastructures, are they still being used in the community, or are they just left behind? And these kind of elements have quite a sustainable or a serious impact on the environment. Climate change is also transforming physical activity practices and communities. So redefining physical activity as a definition to include climate change perspective is also required. If we look at relationships from another perspective in a second study, we see that they conclude that it's highly complex. There is a highly complex relationship between physical activity, physical environment, and sustainability. And the increasing physical activity is paramount of importance for achieving an objective in relations to sustainability. So one of the focuses should be the built environment that can play a major role to increase physical activity. Establishments offering sport opportunities, of course, on the first spot, but also the implementation of multi-purpose community spaces in and outdoors, and also investing in transportation infrastructure is of crucial importance to change people's physical activity behavior. A few examples of this is the bicycle rentals, which are in metropolians common good already, but can also be enlarged to smaller cities. Programs aimed at providing or improving physical activity are important. So the focus within those physical activity programs should be on a regional level. Let's say Eastern and Southern Europe appear to be left behind. Also, if we look at the gender issues, women are left behind in physical activity promotion. And also persons with lower educational attainment appear to be participating much less than persons with a higher educational attainment. Increasing physical activity leads also to a direct and indirect increase of awareness to its environment and sustainability, meaning that if you start participating in physical activity, you can become more aware of your environment and your surroundings. And on the other hand, physical activity directly leads to improvements of health and well-being. The focus in this article, they conclude that the focus should be for interventions should be preferably on regional and less but also on national level. And the interventions can include urban, common, multifunctional green grass spaces, sidewalks, bicycle paths. They appear to be very significant to promote and increase physical activities levels. And it should also be included in urban planning. Also, the COVID pandemic, as an example, raised awareness of the importance of outdoor activities and sustainability, not only for the physical activity itself, but also physical activity supporting mental well-being and de-stress for housing. So let's look back at sustainable developmental goals. As I mentioned before, Sustainable Developmental Goal 3, good health and well-being, is of course the first one that has been related to physical activity. But there is also the climate action, the life below water, the life on land, that has been a part of the Sustainable Developmental Goals that are highly related to physical activity as well. There are others, but I didn't mention them, and that will be far going out of this presentation or on the time limit of this presentation. So I will thank you for your attention, and I will leave the floor again to Alessandro.
Thank you, Professor Kors, for this introduction, for this having put down the fundamentals on how physical activities is very much entangled and related to environmental sustainability, and not only on one way, so how the environment and the respect for the environment may affect the physical activity, but also how planning and doing physical activity in the right way or in the wrong way might have consequences and impact, negative impact in many cases. You mentioned the Olympics on the environmental sustainability. Thank you again. We shall make a step further, inviting at this point Ms. Karin Kue and Mr. Urs Kluser. Again, two small elements for each of them. Ms. Karin Kue is a former athlete, so she has directly experienced physical activity on a competitive way. She was athlete as a track and field athlete for the Swiss national team, and now she's in charge of projects of the UEFA Foundation for Children. While Mr. Urs Kluser is a lawyer by profession, has spent time to acquire a degree in the US, has spent time working for working purposes in Ukraine. And this gives me the chance also to say hello to all our Ukrainian participants we have here today. And at this very moment, he is involved in the UEFA as a UEFA integrity officer, working mainly in the field of combating match fixing and operating in cooperation with the National Association of UEFA. I would leave both of you the floor. I know this time is like a four-hand piano play. So please, Karin and Urs, yours the floor.
Thank you so much, and good evening, good afternoon to everyone. Maybe a little correction. I used to be in a former life integrity officer. Now I'm running the UEFA Foundation for Children. And as you said, I spent some time in Ukraine. So Slava Ukraina to all our friends that are participating from there. Maybe just a few words first about what the UEFA Foundation is doing so that you understand where we are coming from. But then very much we want to share with you to show you what sports can actually have as an impact on the lives and on the lives of children. And this cannot be underestimated. And Karin will be able, to have a testimony on that, because she's passed like 4 or 5 years in Jordan to work with children in the refugee camp there. And it's really incredible the impact that sports can have and what it can do. And I'm not just saying that because we are the UEFA Foundation for Children, but it's really coming from the experience. So maybe you can start to share the presentation. Voilà, next slide. Slide. Yes, thank you. So the UEFA Foundation is a charitable organization, foundation according to Swiss law, that is attached to UEFA, but we are a different judicial body. We have our own personality. We are a young child. We're only 8 years old, so we just started school 2 years ago, but still, you know, we can do a lot of good things. And what we do mainly, and I can ask you to change the slide, is we are supporting projects every year, projects that are implemented by a network of what we call Sports for Good, that uses the sport as a tool to actually improve the lives of children. The axis on where we intervene are several that you can see here on the slide. One of them, refugees and access to sport, etc., and also environment. Really is close to our heart and has been since the beginning of the foundation, projects that we support with the funds every year. Next. Right now, we have running projects all across the world. We have the policy that half of our funds are going to Europe and the rest are going to the other continents. You can here see the different distributions. So we're really present with our partners on many continents. Next. Important maybe to say that that since our founding in 2015, we have supported with around 41 million now. It's more, actually, I have to include from last season. So we are up to 46 million of support in the last seven and a half years. Next. This is a total of 412 projects that we have supported. Next. And we are having projects in 135 countries, so that is quite spanning around the world. Go ahead. And the projects that we have supported in total beneficiaries are over 2 million children so far. Next slide. So this as an introduction, what UEFA Foundation is doing. We are mainly supported by our mother organization, by UEFA, but it's also the sponsors of UEFA that support projects directly on the ground. And one of them, and this is a project that UEFA was running before and was taken over by the foundation later, is that project in the refugee camp in Jordan. And here, best to talk about this is Karin, because she was actually there to start and to implement the project, spent 4 years there, and then we had the luck that she was coming back and working with us here in Lyon. Please, Karin.
Thank you, Os. Good afternoon to everyone. So as Os just said, for the second part of the presentation, we'll go to Jordan through a project in the context of refugees in order to see with a very concrete example how important is the impact of sport in such situation, how sport is so needed. Please, next slide. So let's go back with the civil war in Syria and the thousands of refugees arriving in Jordan. So more than half of them are kids, very traumatized by the war and what they have been through. So at that time, our work was mainly focused on post-trauma, on helping children actually to integrate their new environment, but also offer organized activities, sport activities for the children, you know, to give them the chance to play as children and to stay children. So you have to imagine the refugees were arriving in the middle of the desert, so where the NGOs and Jordanian government were very focused on actually the emergency response, and you have all the children hanging around with nothing to do. So this was our first actually mission. So yeah, thank you. So in order to establish actually those sport activities, it was very important first to train some of the refugees adults as instructor to have them actually organize the sports session. So here was actually our first challenge first, because mostly in regard to girls and women, as due to the culture and religion, they were not allowed to play sports. So we needed to understand it better, to talk with the communities and also to adapt in order to have the girls participating. So we had to cover, for example, the safe place where the girls were playing, to have them play safely without being seen by people around. Also to have female coaches and to have sessions not mixed with boys and girls. So sound very simple, but was not that much, because you have to imagine the women have never done sport before. So even for them to train them physically, it was very difficult for them. But also more than that, in the camp, even if you have talked to all the different communities, everyone was not really accepting to have girls playing sport or playing football. So you have to imagine in the camp, there were also among the refugees, some rebels who were hiding, also people from Daesh, and they were even threatening the death of the female coaches. So there were many challenges at the beginning actually to implement this project. On the other challenge, you have also the kids who were very highly traumatized. They were, playing and redoing what they have seen through the war. So they were playing games, very tough games, where they were mutilating themselves or animals, killing animals. So they were very, very traumatized and very aggressive. So it was, even when we started with the sports session, impossible for them to just be, calm during 5 minutes and follow a normal football session. But now if you go in the camp, you will just see normal session everywhere. You will see the kids very disciplined, playing and enjoying the session. So this has been done through actually the 10th years since the beginning of the project and this arrival of refugee. So now if you go, for example, to the Zaatari camp, it's kind of a small city. So we have also adapted to the situation, construct some infrastructure that you can see on the picture, build some pitches for the kids, but also a sport house where you have offices for our coaches, for our team, but also other rooms to implement other sport that were also chosen by the kids. So now it's not only football, but it's also Zumba, judo, e-sport, reading, or having a libraries. All those demands also coming from the kids.
Maybe Karin, I think you're coming to that, but you have to understand 10 years later, this camp is still there. There is 80,000 people there, and I think around half of them are children.
Exactly.
So it's a huge population there that cannot go out regularly on the camp. They can have special permissions, but they have to stay there. And you can imagine what this has as an impact on the life there. And the children really have changed a lot, and Karin will get back to that even more. And we will also explain that the project today is really only run by refugees. The whole management is refugees, but Karin will explain that later. So there's really a lot of activities being done, and the changes in the population, in the children, they are amazing. And I'm sorry, Karin, to intervene.
No worries. Next slide, please. So this is a small video for you to see some of the activities in the camp.
There's no sound.
Yeah, there's no sound, but yeah.
Can you hear the sound?
No sound.
No,
I think you have to share the sound somewhere. I don't know Zoom.
Excuse me so much. Okay. Now it's supposed to.
Yes, perfect.
It's okay.
It's okay, yeah.
Next slide.
I will go quickly actually on this slide just to show that we were not only doing things in the refugees camp, but also outside, working on social cohesion, on the living together between both Syrian and Jordanian communities. Next slide, please. So here, what I really want to highlight, actually, it's the numbers. As also was saying before, we're talking about a huge number of children, and you can see how many children are participating now, and also the parity kind of between the girls and the boys, having in mind that at the beginning there were mostly no girls allowed. What I wanted to add, for example, if you see on the 2,700 girls in Zaatari camp, when we started with the project, there were only 3 girls. which were kind of allowed by their parents to participate. And we're talking about a camp of more than 120,000 people, more than half being kids. So it was really not many. So just to see the importance of the numbers now. So next slide, please. So here I will actually go more into the impact, which have been really very important. So as I said before, and you saw also with the numbers, now for the girls to play in the camp, it's totally normal. It's even their parents who are kind of bringing the kids to the facilities and asking the coaches to take care of them. So, but it's not only the change in the perception of women and sport, but it opens also other doors. So the girls can play football, they can play sport, and they're seeing that actually they're good at doing it. So they also see that, okay, they are capable of doing things. So they can also go to school. They can also dream of becoming, for example, teacher, professor, or doctor, etc., etc. So it's also, you know, in the general seeing and thinking of what girls and women can do, this huge empowerment of them now. So also we have like the total ownership of the project, as Oz was saying, by the community. So all the staff, meaning the coaches, but also the management team, is from the refugee communities.
The referees, everyone is from.
Everyone is really from refugees communities. So they're running the project since years now, and really taking the project for their project. And as I said also before, it's a huge, huge impact in the behavior actually of the children. So at the beginning, as I was saying, they were destroying the material, destroying the session. It was impossible. There was so much aggressivity in them. And during the whole implementation of the project, we saw how their behavior was changing. So now it's very disciplined kids that we're saying they're protecting the sports session, protecting the material. They also really have this ownership of the project and of their session. And this is not only seen on the sports session activities, but also seen outside, as they're less violent, they're less vandalism. And this has been reported actually by the police in the camp.
So the sport actually transports these values of, you know, discipline, respect of rules, teamwork, etc. All this can be very easily positively translated with the children. And one impact, very important one, is with the girls also.
Exactly. With the girl, the huge increase of self-confidence among the female population. For example, if I give a concrete example, at the beginning, you would have never seen a woman actually spoken in public or giving her opinion or contradicting what a man would have said. They were really quiet, shy, saying nothing, but now they can really speak very fluently, defending what they think is right and really fighting for their opinion, which was not the case at the beginning of the project. So there's also a huge drop on early marriages, early pregnancy. So now when we're talking with the parent, with the coaches, they see the life very differently actually for their daughter. They can see that there's other opportunity for them. I have, for example, one of the coaches who told me if she would have had all this when she was an adolescent teenager, she would definitely really wanted to be a teacher. So now this is so important that she really wants to give the choice to her daughter, this opportunity to her daughters. And it's the thinking of most of the population now. And yeah, that's it. The next slide, please. You see a video of the girls' activities, so you can be really into it now.
من أجل الآتي اليوم للكل يد في التغيير نحن بأنتن وأنتم نحن بأنتن وأنتم كلنا بكبير وصغير مجهودات تتوالى مشوار سهل لا 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 لن يخلو من عثرات بشر تلك طبيعتنا أخطاء ستعلمنا لنحسن ما هو فاسأل نفسك واطرح سين ما دورك في التحسين ما دورك في التحسين فاسأل نفسك واطرح.
Thank you.
Next slide.
Next slide. And what I can add also, all the activities you're seeing, and actually all the activities proposed are really daily activities. So it's not like special event happening. It's really open daily. And
Maybe just the beautiful field that you see, the artificial field in the middle of the desert. In the beginning, they were playing football actually on gravel, barefoot. Huh? Yeah. So they have other resilience than we have. And this was our sponsor, PepsiCo, who actually funded a big size pitch, artificial field, and a small size pitch, especially for girls. So they have now these facilities, which is helping them very much in their life.
Exactly. And now what I just want to show again, it's the importance of sport in the whole process. So now after 10 years, there's the stabilization of the population, the camps are still there, and the numbers are still very huge, and there's this increase of number of birth rates actually. And sport continues to be a very important tool. So we had at the beginning with the emergency, it was mostly welcoming trauma integration. We have the valorization after automation, responsibilization, and now we go to the integration as well within the Jordanian communities, which is as well, you know, a view of the Jordanian government giving more and more work permits, so they're integrating in the communities. And there we also, through sport, trying to accompany them in this process. Next slide, please. So, yeah, so this is just to show the huge number that we still have also in regard to children in the camp. Next one. This is the same in Azra camp, just to show you still the number that of the refugees still existing, still there in Jordan, that need to be integrated in the Jordanian communities. Next slide. So here for the future of the project, as I was saying, is this integration within the Jordanian communities, and this will be also be by this structure already existing in Zaatari. We can go to the next slide. And to have them, for example, integrated as, for example, multi-sport club or an academy, where we give also the refugee this dignity, because they will not be seen anymore as refugee, but really as part of the community and doing something as well for the country. Next slide. Yeah. So that's it for the presentation. I don't.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Super, Karina. She can talk much longer if you need to, but we have to respect the time. And I hope this is a more practical example. This is what we do, really trying to use sport for longer term development and to help children practically on the ground. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Urs, also for staying within the time limits, because this gives the chance for everybody also to bring own experience. I would, let's say, summarize these two interventions. We have talked about environmental sustainability related to physical activity in the first intervention. And now we have learned how physical activities or sport more in general can address, how can I say, human sustainability, psychological, psychosocial sustainability, because this sustainability is very inclusive, especially with the migrant children. I would leave the last 50 minutes to the floor, okay? I would suggest two things. Either if you have a question, a specific question for our rapporteurs, to write it in the chat, or if you want to bring your experience. I know in our audience, we have people who have done or are doing similar things as the ones we have listened. So please feel free to share. Stay in a couple of minutes with your intervention, so we allow many interventions to be explored. Elena, and then Caterina.
Okay, thank you, Alessandro. Good afternoon to everyone. Thank you for this space to make a question directly to our reporters. So very interesting interventions, in my opinion, regarding to the first relation. The concept of physical literacy, as I wrote in the chat to Professor Butters, is really interesting, because let's say we have listened to speak about any kind of literacy, but to me it's the first time that I read about physical literacy. And also the question is related to its intervention and and specifically these kind of findings presented in the studies imply the, let's say, the direct engagement of policymakers and stakeholders at community level to create conditions for stimulate populations and people of any kind of any age to increase their physical activity. And this means also, let's say, to take decision regarding new structures at the community level, new infrastructures, new probably communication campaigns and engagement campaigns for make the population aware of all the possible options that a territory can offer. But regarding my community, I'm living in Ferrara in Emilia-Romagna region, so greetings from Italy. The question is that this attention to physical activities strongly connected to sustainability and local policy, let's say, is not so strong. My question is, how can we as a citizens, let's say, stimulate our policymakers and take into account this strong connection?
Professor Kuls, it's yours, the floor. Yeah.
Yes. Well, what I've seen so far in actions that have been undertaken is that people involved in some kind of a citizen science project, where they are trying to picture the local community and to study the local community on its resources, on its challenges, and on the opportunities that are still open within the community to be developed, but need support. And with this citizen science project, you can actually involve the policymakers as well, so that they are part of the project. Most of these projects can be funded by the European Commission, and there is also, I think there is also, I'm not sure that it's possible in Italy, but I know in Belgium there is also some governmental funding on these kind of projects. So I think that would be an opportunity to use the local community and to get involved with the governing body, and to take part parallel or together with the community and the governmental body in this science project, citizen science projects. That would be an opportunity to make them more aware and to get them involved as well, because then they are really participating within the project, and the citizens as well. And so there is an opportunity for an open communication.
Okay, thank you, Professor Kuls. I don't know if Caterina Salta is, yes, it's your turn, Caterina, please.
Thank you, Alessandro. Actually, my question was similar to Elena's. First of all, thank you all for being here today, and to the organizers. I had a great pleasure to collaborate with UEFA Foundation for Our Children back in 2016. My first program for refugee children in a refugee camp here in Athens in Greece has been funded by the foundation, and this was very important. It was just the beginning. Unfortunately, since then, many years later, 2016 to 2023, we are still talking about short-term interventions, initiatives that unfortunately are not sustainable. We always talk about best practices, etc., etc. So it's always a matter of sustainability, and unless we find a way for the policymakers to establish specific frameworks, policies, whatever, for in governmental, first of all, level to have the support, if not designed and implemented by a specific other, not NGOs, grassroots initiatives, we will always have short interventions. So it was again, my question would be again about how we can convince policymakers how can we have better advocacy for these projects to become sustainable. I'm talking both about sport for development programs to support refugees. This is my expertise, but also the other subject that I'm also involved regarding the promotion of environmental sustainability through sport. Thank you.
Professor Kurs, would you like to add something to what has just been said?
I think that talking to Urs and his colleague might be interesting to see how they managed to transfer the responsibility of managing everything in the project to the refugees themselves, because that is something that might be part of the process when you want to get something into a sustainable self-guiding process. So I think that Urs can also give some input on this question.
Okay, Urs.
I think,
Please.
you know, in terms, I would be more optimistic because it's in our daily life. I think in the last 4 years, I'm here now for 5 years, sports has more and more been discovered as being part of the policies. We have much more interest by international, like the UN organizations for youth programs. UNHCR is much more interested in this, but also in terms of the governments, like now in Turkey, when we have this earthquake, we're talking about activities for children. So everybody actually is recognizing this, and it has to be advocated, as you said, more and more. So this is something I think that is becoming recognized, and sometimes we have to think outside of our European bubble also, because outside Europe, it has even more importance and can be adapted also easily. It's just a question also of the first impact, the first support, you know. And then for the second one, I leave it to Karin to say how she managed. I think also I have to say we are proud as the foundation that this is totally run by the refugees, because it was a question of the ownership. You cannot always just, you know, provide something top down. You need to involve the people, and that's what Karin and her colleague managed very well.
Yeah, so to jump on this, definitely for us at the foundation, it was very important, as you said, Professor, in terms of sustainability, to have the ownership of the project by the beneficiary themselves, and also to have the project not only designed by us coming and saying, okay, this is what it's worth, so we do it like that, but we really did it in discussion all the time with the population themselves. So it was also them bringing us some idea of what they will see it and how they will. So we were really, you know, working hand by hand and giving them those expertise that they were missing in order to, for example, to do the management, the total management of the project. So it was giving them those expertise so them after they could do it by themselves. And even now when I'm talking with them, they're always telling me when I'm checking for the update of the project, or if everything is going well, they're telling me, you know, Karen, you're talking about beneficiaries, but we're talking about our own children. So we really want the best for our own children. So this is a very difference between also how they see it and how we see it. And as Uz also were saying that, you know, there's funding coming, but this funding can come and stop at the end, but they will still be there. So they still have to have the capacity to continue with the project and to continue to implement the project by themselves.
We have...
so, Alessandro, if I may just a 10 seconds comment.
Okay,
10 seconds comment. First of all, totally agree with having them with us from step one, from designing to implementing a project, definitely on it. And that's what we're doing. That's what I'm doing. Comment number two, unfortunately, the context is totally different in Southeastern Europe, especially in Greece and Italy, because as entry points to Europe, we serve only as an entry point. The population changes completely all the time, the refugee population. So unfortunately, until now, it has not been possible to have a refugee-led projects. And that's it. Thank you so much for your valuable time, Alessandro.
We have two interventions. The first one is Irina Turcic, please.
Hello, everybody. The first, I want to apologize to my English. It's very simple and easy, but I will try to explain. Of course, I need to say a very grateful all international communities that that support our country in this ugly time for us. Really a big thanks. And this your event is very interesting for us. Especially for me, is interesting the second Project Jordan, because you know, I represent the Drohobych State Pedagogical University, which is in the West Ukraine, and maybe do you know that West Ukraine there are many refugees in this time. For example, in my city, Drohobych live near 1,600 people, and now near 1,500 is really refugees. And my question, if you can to share your experience, because we haven't such experience, maybe you can give for us some books, some methodological materials, and we will try to your experience share in my country, in my city. Thanks.
I guess this is for Urs or Karin.
For Karin's, I think Karin has the best experience have.
Thank you, Benno. Thank you. So in terms of sharing best practice, as you were saying, yes, definitely this is something that we can do. And I can also be in contact with you, and we can share what we have done.
Maybe just to say, you know, we are doing this. We are supporting projects in Ukraine. We have a number of projects that we support that are now working in Ukraine for the children. And another one that is very close to my heart is, or our heart, is an organization that does mine prevention with sport, with football. And they are also currently working in Ukraine to bring the sport and use this as a tool to have the children made aware of the unexploded devices. And this is already working, and we have supported this in other countries. And this is actually saving lives as we speak, to make sure that the children, you know, be careful around the unexposed devices that unfortunately are everywhere now in the region, in the eastern region, or even there where the fighting was happening a year ago.
Thanks. Thanks a lot.
It's the turn of Emilia Marquez-Ugica, please.
I would like to, I'm very impressed with the project Jordan. Actually, I come from a 15-year work in the prevention of drug abuse with adolescents and their families, within which I have developed also programs for migrants, or for people who live in Greece, but the parents were migrants. Well, actually, I think I would like to make two comments which are more minute from the psychological and the prevention point of view. First of all, according to the European standards of prevention, there is no we cannot have best results if we do not have continuity and duration. And I think the Project Jordan has managed to deal with that. In order to have results, in order to have manageable results. Because in Greece, a lot of attempts, especially now, are focusing only in the short-term interventions, and this does not. We cannot really talk about prevention of drug abuse if we have very small, very short-term interventions. And I would like to make a suggestion. I would be very interesting to see how on earth did you manage to persuade parents to leave the girls, to let the girls take part, slowly from the beginning, and then how sports became the vehicle for the kids to participate, to get inclusive, and to own, to empower them and to own their intervention, to own what they are doing. I think these minute details should probably be first of all, shared as best practices, but also I think people should also the stakeholders and the people who make decisions should be aware of it. How this, what is the mechanism? Otherwise, we cannot talk about sustainable results. And the other important thing, I think, of this kind of projects is the following, that we are talking about emotional, Alessandro said that, mentioned that before, emotional and psychological sustainability for the planet, because we're talking about offering the kids a way to, in a way, heal their traumas. It's a healing process. And I think this is worth millions. Correct. Thank you very much for your intervention. Thank you.
So thank you very much for your comment. So to jump on your question regarding the girls and their participation. So as you said, it wasn't a short-term process, you know, it was also a long-term process. But what was very important is, as I said before, it was really to talk with the community and to make them also understand what we were doing. So they were integrated from the very beginning. First step of the project, we really went to the people and talked to the communities, but also to the religious entities, to, you know, to the parents, so to the several community within the camp, to make them also understand that what we were doing, and also to have their feedback and to see together how we could do it better, you know, to have the daughter girls being integrated. And what we also discovered, it was not only because of religion, of culture, but it was also because of if they were in a safe place where they could do it, this was okay for them. So it was not only having not them play football, but it was how they would do it. And after, it was also having the parents integrated and having them also as coaches. They were also seeing what we were doing, and they were also seeing what was happening to the children. So it was kind of a process, you know, to have them being integrated and being very open to see. And also when they saw the impact that were coming on the children, you know, at the very first time was in terms of aggressivity. It was also in terms of making them active, doing something. They were also seeing the good and the benefit on the children. So they're also being part of it.
At the end, I think it's a lot to do with gain the trust. And this is a long-term process. You know, you need to train to gain the trust. But as an anecdote, we went back last year just to also discuss the future of the project. And Karin was so amazed that now the parents are actually asking for the girls to be integrated in the activities. And she just told you when she was there were 3 girls out of 20,000 children. So for her, it's just amazing to see the development also that this has taken. And that's a very positive things to see. And as you said, we really have, we can try to share also as much as possible. It's a positive example. It's not always as easy, but this has taken some years, but it's come back with a good result.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
As much as we want to be respectful of an hour, as we promised all of you, I would only ask if there is a very last intervention or question in the audience. Just to not to leave anything unattended. If there isn't any, fine, we can stick with our tea time. As you can see, we have chosen an infusion, a tea, as the logo of our meetings, because we like also to be seated around the table with ease, sipping a little bit of a tea and exchanging thoughts and exchanging experiences. And I think this is what really happened today. We wanted to talk about physical activity and how this is related to sustainability, and we have found that there are a lot of sustainabilities involved: the environmental one, the psychological one, the social one, the inclusion, the emotional, and we could really add a lot. And physical activity as a spontaneous activity, or something which is more structured, like the activities presented by the UEFA Children Foundation or by the athlete sport as more structured approach. Thank you to all who have participated. I would like to remind you a couple of things. that in a month, always the last Thursday of the month at the same time, at 3 o'clock Central European Time, we have another meeting. And in this case, on the 30th of March, we have Yanis Agelis, who is going to involve us. I'm not saying he's going to talk, because we know him very much, that he's going to be very engaging, as we like. He's going to provoke us and to stimulate us about shifting mindset about well-being in education. So for those who are teachers, educators, parents, trainers, this is what you can look for. Please follow us on our social media, on our website, apply for the next meeting. And in the coming hours, you will receive a small link for an evaluation. We would really appreciate if you can give us your feedback about this workshop. Thank you very much to all of you, to the many of you who have attended all the hours, and we are looking forward to meet you again in a month. Thank you so much, and bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.